The name Mastertronic may not carry any weight in video game circles today, but once upon a time back in the early days of computer gaming in the early 1980s, Mastertronic would, in a few short years, make its presence felt in the UK gaming market. But before I get into too much detail, I think some context is important here, because unlike America, which would be dominated by Atari in the opening years of the same decade, before the now infamous video game crash in '83, brought about by Atari and others flooding the market with overpriced, poor quality software, a situation that former love hotel operators Nintendo would take full advantage of with the Western release of their hugely popular in Japan Famicom console, which was redesigned and renamed the Nintendo Entertainment System. Back in Europe though, things were very different. For a start, consoles like the Atari 2600 and ColecoVision were available and sold quite well, but it was the release of the Commodore 64 and the Sinclair ZX Spectrum, both in 1982, that would have the biggest and longest lasting impact. For a start, even the government was pushing computer literacy in schools, meaning kids could coerce their parents, who knew nothing of computers, into thinking that buying one would help their children with their schoolwork, when in reality all the kids wanted to do was play Manic Miner and other games. It's into this sudden explosion of affordable computers and a hungry audience for new software that Mastertronic would make its mark. Because they specialised in budget software, pricing their games at the pocket money friendly $1.99 and $2.99 range. Rather than producing the games themselves, they let up and coming young programmers desperate to get into the business send in their own games, which they would then market. On one hand, it meant the quality of the games was all over the place, but for the price it never became an issue. Also, Mastertronic would reach a far wider audience with an aggressive distribution model of getting their games to anyone who would sell them, rather than focusing on the big chains of the day like WH Smith, which became a godsend to youngsters like me who could walk into a newsagent's on the way home from school, pick up a comic and scan the racks to see if there are any new releases for my Commodore Plus 4, a short-lived system that it seemed only Mastertronic supported. And the first reason why I came to be a fan of the company. Now, the early and mid 1980s was like the Wild West in many ways when it came to software development. By now, the C64 and Speccy were joined by a whole host of potential rival 8-bit micros, such as the Amstrad CPC 464, the Dragon 32 and 64, even the MSX tried to break the stranglehold of Commodore and Sinclair, and supplying them all with plentiful and affordable games was Mastertronic. But as the decade that fashion forgot began to close, new, more powerful systems such as the 16-bit computers, the Commodore Amiga and Atari ST would come to dominate in Europe. Gamers now wanted more to their games than jump over puddles. The graphics and music in games had to be bigger and better. By now, with the exception of the Commodore 64 and Spectrum, in which both continued to release new and upgraded hardware revisions with extra memory, the other 8-bit computers fell by the wayside. Mastertronic took to re-releasing older titles at budget prices to stay afloat. But in 1987, the Barbie peddlers of Mattel would release in Europe a machine whose reputation preceded it, the Nintendo NES console. While not a big hit in Europe initially, the steady flow of games from America, plus the recognition of brands such as Mario Brothers and Zelda amongst others, caught the imaginations of kids in the UK. Though the price of games was a big stumbling block, consoles were being seen by many in the UK industry as the future of gaming. It was at this time, whether by chance or design, that Mastertronic, now part of Richard Branson's Virgin Group, would take on what must have seemed a poisoned chalice of a task and distribute Sega's Master System in the UK and then Europe. The Master System had sold poorly in its native Japan and had such a disastrous release in the US that many gamers there later didn't even know it had ever been available in North America. But the years of struggle in the cutthroat world of computer gaming in the UK and the distribution network that they had worked hard to foster would now bear fruit for Mastertronic. And now we come to the second reason why I became a fan of the company, because against strong opposition from Commodore, Atari and Nintendo, the Master System would for the very first time find an audience and start to build a fan base, thanks to the ports of many Sega arcade hits and some clever advertising on the part of Mastertronic. Another component in Sega's rise prior to the release of the Mega Drive cannot be overlooked, and that was the internet of the day, the gaming magazines. A staple of the hobby since its inception, now suddenly magazines covering the growing console market looked to the Far East for games to review to cater to the new import scene. My own recollections of the time are coloured by the excitement of seeing machines like the PC Engine and anime-themed games years before I knew what anime was. It was this new generation who didn't give a toss about keyboards or learning BASIC that Mastertronic would tap into and cement the Master System as a fixture in UK gaming ahead of the Nintendo. But with the Mega Drive's release in Japan in 1989 and excitement for it building in the gaming press, Sega would buy out Mastertronic and rebrand them Sega Europe, leaving many of the old guard at their posts. Now 100% focused on Sega, the curtain would fall on a company that played its part in the growth of gaming in the UK. What started out as business-orientated machines, the Commodore 64, Spectrum and others would, in the hands of children, be purely gaming systems, and Mastertronic was there to feed this new medium for many years, and if not for them, would Sega have ever been brave enough to release the Mega Drive? Whenever I see the famous blast processing commercials popular in the US, I always think of Mastertronic and the role they played in building the Sega brand. So my name's Gray, this is Consoletronix, and yes, I even went as far as to name my channel in honour of them. This has been my highly condensed telling of a tale from gaming's past. If you would like to see me do more videos in this way, let me know in the comments. So let me just say thank you for watching my Mastertronic retrospective. I'll have more videos up very soon, so until then, thank you and goodbye.